The Courier Mail front page tomorrow will be incredibly disturbing for many people who are particularly upset with the way in which we have this revolving door policy in relation to youth crime in Queensland. This just basically says it all. Secret lives of crims. A frustrated magistrate has blown the whistle on laws that force courts to turn a blind eye to the extensive criminal histories of serial juvenile offenders once they turn 18. Magistrate Stuart Shearer complained that he was forced to pretend during sentencing an 18-year-old for a string of offences that the man had no prior convictions when in fact he had 15 juvenile probation orders. There's a crisis in Queensland. There's a crisis in a lot of things. There's a crisis in health. There's a crisis in domestic violence, and there's a crisis in youth crime. But Queenslanders keep re-electing the Labor government, so what would you expect?
Yeah. And there's just been a whole lot of talk and a whole lot of community anger and a whole lot of pressure mounting on the government to make change. And we've seen them, introduce, they tried to address the ridiculous bail issues when it comes to youth offenders, ankle bracelets that they wanted to put on them if they're 16 or 17, and a ludicrous situation where one of the trial areas didn't actually have any anklet bracelets to put on these kids. So, look, I absolutely applaud the journalists who've got this story for tomorrow's Courier Mail, and for the magistrate for speaking up and actually showing us what is happening inside the justice system, because very rarely, unless you sit inside there as a court reporter, does the public really understand what happens. And look, the children's court is a whole stealth operation on its own. We never, or very rarely, do we ever get access to find out what's happening in the children's court. So the fact that you had 15 probations and this magistrate has had to turn a blind eye to that, that is appalling. And I can't imagine what the victims of those crimes that this person was, found put on probation for would have to say about this. But as you say, Lisa, we've been talking about this since before the state election, when there was a crisis on youth crime across North Queensland, and obviously it's a problem around the country. But there's now talk of raising and lifting the age of criminal responsibility from 10 to 12 to 14. There is a big enough problem already. Why do we want to raise it? All you're going to do then is have kids that are 12 and 14 running around knowing they're just going to get the slap on the wrist and it's all good and we can go out there and cause chaos and mayhem. And look, the anger, Lisa, and the community fought about this because in January we saw the mum, the lady who was pregnant, and her husband mowed down, and it was a teenager accused of being behind the wheel. It's just not good enough.
It's absolutely ridiculous. And where's the parental obligations here? What are the parents of these thugs doing? I believe parents should be jailed. Parents of young thugs should be thrown in the slammer, give them a month in there so that they can cool their heels, and then when they get out, say to little Johnny, you're not going outside this house, mate, because you're a thug, you're a thief, and you're a menace to society. That's what I'd be doing. All right, let's go to the age.
Yeah, but the problem is you took...
Yeah, go on.
Oh, sorry, I was going to say, the problem is you talk to the police and they will tell you when they pick these young kids up at night, there are no parents to call. There are no guardians to call. They're missing in action. So the police are then stuck with this kid that they can't put into custody because they're not supposed to put them into watch houses. It's a mess and it still hasn't been properly cleaned up.